Welcome to today's AI in Motion, mostly working. So for the last decade, data residency was, pretty straightforward. You just made sure your data physically sat on a server inside your own country.
Right, which used to be enough.
Exactly. It was like renting a hotel room. But now with sovereign AI, nations and corporations are realizing they can't just rent the room or an extension cord from foreign tech giants. They have to build the whole hotel. The plumbing, the staff, the land it sits on.
Yeah, and that realization is creating, we call the sovereignty trilemma. It's this impossible situation where nations are finding out you can't have it all.
Trilemma, meaning you have to pick your battles.
Exactly. You cannot simultaneously maximize domestic control, build global frontier-level AI capabilities, and, keep everything perfectly aligned with local regulations.
Because if you restrict your AI to only train on perfectly secure, domestically approved
data, you don't have the sheer volume of data you need. To get those bleeding-edge capabilities, you need massive global supply chains, and globally.
sourced data sets, which naturally forces you to sacrifice some of that domestic control you wanted in the first place.
Right. You have to choose what matters.
Okay, let's say a country decides, we'll sacrifice capability and go all in on control. They still hit a massive physical wall. Smaller players are just getting locked out of the semiconductor supply chain entirely.
It is a literal scarcity problem. I mean, to give you a sense of the scale here, NVIDIA currently has about $95.2 billion in purchase commitments.
Wait, 95 billion?
Yeah, billion. The biggest players have essentially bought up the global hardware supply before it even exists. It makes it incredibly hard for a sovereign nation to just jump the line.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. Because I'm stuck on the physical reality of this. Even if a country magically acquires those chips, how do they run them?
That's the real bottleneck, right?
Because legacy data centers, they cool, maybe 10 to 15 kilowatts per rack? How on earth are they surviving the 140 kilowatt heat of a new NVIDIA Blackwell rack? Won't the servers literally melt?
You're totally right to question the physics there. Air cooling is just physically impossible at that density. It's forcing this massive, extremely expensive transition to direct liquid cooling.
And running those complex liquid cooling systems takes even more power. Right on top of what the chips are already pulling.
Exactly. And that triggers a severe time-to-power mismatch. You can physically build an AI data center in, say, 2 to 3 years.
But connecting it to the grid takes way longer.
Well, yeah, like 4 to 10 years, just to get approved and connected to a public power grid. So, to bypass that gridlock, big tech is actually skipping public utilities entirely. They're signing agreements for small modular reactors.
Wait, like actual nuclear power?
Yes, dedicated on-site nuclear power. Just to get these facilities online.
Wow, if the infrastructure demands are that extreme and, heavily dominated by a few US companies, it's no wonder foreign nations are panicking. Like someone suddenly taking back the keys to your rental car while you're driving on the highway.
That's a great way to put it. The ultimate wake-up call was the June 2026 U.S. export ban on Anthropic.
Right, that was huge.
It acted as a geopolitical kill switch. Foreign nationals were suddenly barred from accessing advanced models because of security concerns. It proved that your critical infrastructure could just be shut off overnight.
And we saw the fallout from that immediately. France's intelligence agency actually dropped the US-based company Palantir and swapped them out for a local competitor, Chaps Vision.
Yeah, they had to manufacture their own cars, to use your analogy. And we're seeing countries use their unique geography for this too.
Oh, like Canada is using its freezing climate to naturally cool their Canzale supercomputing lab, completely bypassing that cooling bottleneck we just talked about.
Exactly. And Singapore took a cultural approach with Sea Lion. They realized that global models, which are mostly trained on Western data, completely lack the linguistic nuances of Southeast Asia.
So sovereign AI isn't just about data security. It's about accuracy for your local population.
Exactly. But you know, if you run a business heavily dependent on third-party AI, you are staring down a massive liability risk here.
Okay, let's unpack this. What does this all mean for you, the listener, if you're running a company?
Well, it's what we call the viability squeeze. Courts are increasingly holding the deployer of the AI strictly liable for errors, things like copyright infringement or severe hallucinations.
And the big cloud vendors just cap their financial liability and the terms of service.
So if their model hallucinates and costs your company, millions of you were left holding the bag. And right now, 91% of executives admit they have AI dependency blind spots, meaning
They don't even know all the third-party models operating inside their own systems. That is wild.
it is. So to protect themselves, companies are deploying sovereign AI entirely within their own local jurisdictions. They want to create a liability firewall where they have total visibility.
But building that is expensive. I was reading, companies are accepting like a 20% sovereignty premium to do this.
Yeah, because you lose the massive economies of scale of renting from a centralized giant. You have to hire specialized local talent, manage your own bespoke hardware.
So that premium is basically the price of security, and that cost ultimately hits the consumer.
Precisely. The global AI landscape is fracturing, from a centralized U.S. monopoly into a federated, culturally distinct ecosystem.
Heavily fortified walled gardens, basically. Which leaves us with a fascinating puzzle to think about. If every nation and corporation successfully builds its own hyper-localized, culturally isolated, sovereign AI walled garden, how do they talk to each other? Exactly. How will these independent systems communicate and negotiate with each other during a fast-moving global crisis? That is something for you to mull over on your own. Until next time, thanks for joining and stay connected.